Smile lines, laughing with all my friends outside. God forbid I've got cellulite. Shows up in direct noon sunlight.
Let's start with my favorite hike so far, and it's a proper full day adventure. You're looking at roughly 13 kilometers total distance with around 1000 meters of elevation gain. Most people take about 5 to 6 hours depending on the pace and how often you stop, which you will because the views are absolutely insane. You start in one of my favorite remote mountain villages in Switzerland, Gimmelwald, at about 1360 meters, and the trail immediately gives you that classic alpine feeling. Narrow paths winding past wooden chalets, cows, chickens, sheep, and wide open green meadows. Pretty quickly, the trail begins to climb through shaded forest sections, which are honestly the most exhausting part of the entire hike. As you gain elevation, the trees begin to thin out and the landscape opens up, revealing more and more of the valley behind you. About halfway up, you really start to feel a climb. The trail becomes steeper and rougher with rocky sections and tight zigzags. Then comes one of the toughest parts, the final push before Tanzbödeli. This section is noticeably steeper, a bit rocky, and definitely gets your heart rate up. But as soon as you reach the top, everything opens up. You arrive at Tanzbödeli at roughly 2100 meters, and suddenly you're looking straight out over the Lauterbrunnen Valley. Massive cliff faces, deep valleys, and countless waterfalls dropping down the rock walls. Honestly, some of the most incredible views I've ever experienced in the Alps so far. From here, you begin your descent. But instead of heading straight down, you pass by Obersteinberg at around 1780 meters. Obersteinberg is a remote mountain hotel and one of the most peaceful spots on the trail, perfect for a short break before continuing down the valley. From there, the trail continues its long descent all the way to Stechelberg at around 900 meters. Difficulty-wise, I'd call this moderate to challenging, especially because of the long descent at the end and the steep rocky section right before reaching Tanzbödeli.
If you're once in the region around Berner Oberland and you want to have some great views without tourists, without the big crowds, then yeah, come to this trail. If you want to have something new, exciting, Tanzbödeli, Gimmelwald, Tanzbödeli, and back to the gondola.
Next, we've got a hike that combines serious elevation gain with one of the most scenic ridge walks in central Switzerland. You're looking at roughly 10 kilometers with 900 meters of ascent and a total hiking time of about 4 hours. The trail usually starts with a lift up to Rossweid, where the hike begins gently. The first section is actually quite easy, wide trails leading you through beautiful alpine fields and wooden huts, slowly gaining elevation towards Platteneck. It's a nice warm-up before things get definitely more intense. From there, the character of the hike completely changes. As you hike towards Lettgässli, the trail becomes much steeper and more direct. You gain several hundred meters of elevation in a relatively short time, and this is where it really starts to feel like a proper mountain hike. The path narrows, the terrain gets rockier, and you'll find yourself climbing over loose stones, natural steps, and steeper switchbacks. The final push-up through Lettgässli is the toughest part. Steep, rocky and a bit exposed in places, so careful. But once you reach the ridge, everything changes again. You suddenly find yourself on the Brienzer ridge, and from here on it's honestly just pure reward. The trail follows the ridge line towards Brienzer Rothorn with huge drop-offs on both sides and constant panoramic views. Behind it all, the big names Eiger, Mönch and Jungfrau rise up on the horizon, if the weather allows. This is also where the Ibex Trail really lives up to its name. The rocky ridges and cliffs are perfect habitat for wildlife, and with a bit of luck, especially early or late in the day, you might spot ibex, marmots or even golden eagles. From here, the hike becomes more of a steady ridge walk rather than a climb. At the top, you're rewarded with one of the best panoramas in Switzerland, a full 360-degree view over more than 600 alpine peaks stretching across central Switzerland and deep into the Bernese Alps. Overall, I'd rate this hike as moderate to challenging, again, mainly because of that steep middle section.
This is it. I made it to the top of the Brienzer Rothorn. Well, I have still a few elevation meters to do, but I kind of made it to the ridge and I'm very happy. What a beautiful hike. I hope you enjoyed the impressions. I'm absolutely happy with the decision also to start the hike very early. Got up at 5 a.m, started the hike around shortly before 7, and therefore, even though it's a weekend day, there is almost nobody up here. Made it roughly in 3.5 hours. This is insane. This is not another day. This is not another place. This is literally 10 minutes walking from there in that direction, and look at this. Fog, clouds, no views at all. Crazy. The weather in the mountains is so unpredictable.
The last hike is easily one of the most iconic ridge walks in eastern Switzerland in Appenzell, and it's a proper full-day adventure rather than a short outing. You're looking at roughly 16 kilometers total distance depending on the exact path, with around 500 meters of ascent and well over 1,200 meters of descent. Expect this to take about 6 to 7 hours. Starting at Hoher Kasten, usually accessed by cable car, you're immediately treated to panoramic views before you've even taken your first step. The trail begins along a high alpine ridge and right away it feels exposed, in the best way possible. As you move towards Saxer Lücke, the path follows the ridge with rolling ups and downs, grassy sections and occasionally rocky patches. Depending on the season, of course as well, some snowy parts. On one side you're looking out towards the Rhine Valley and on the other deep into the Alpstein mountains. The scenery constantly shifts, which makes this section incredibly engaging. Then you reach Saxer Lücke at around 1,650 meters, arguably one of the most iconic viewpoints in Switzerland. Those sharp rock towers rise almost vertically, and depending on the light, they look completely different every day. It's one of those places where you'll definitely stop for a while. From here, the hike transitions from a ridge walk into a descent. The trail drops down towards Fälensee, and this is where things get a bit more technical. You'll encounter narrow sections, uneven rocky paths and steeper switchbacks, so good footing is important, especially if it's wet. As you descend, the landscape becomes more enclosed, and suddenly you arrive at Fälensee, a long, narrow alpine lake surrounded by steep cliffs. It's super peaceful. This is the perfect spot to take a break before continuing. But the hike doesn't end here. From Fälensee, you continue down through the valley, passing alpine huts and lush fields before entering rather forest sections. The descent towards Brülisau is long and steady, and this is where you really start to feel the distance in your legs. Overall, I'd rate this hike as moderate, but it can feel closer to challenging due to the length, exposure along the ridge, and the long descent at the end. What makes it special is the variety. Ridge walking, crazy rock formations, a hidden alpine lake, and a full valley descent all in one hike.
I'm really beyond fulfilled and happy because it was an amazing experience, a beautiful trail. You hear a lot about it, and I have to say it's absolutely worth trying. My expectations have been met. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if so, feel free to leave a like, leave a comment, and subscribe for more hikes to come.